Exile and Resilience, the story of the Dutch refugees in King's Lynn. As tensions escalated in the Low Countries leading up to the Dutch Revolt, also known as the 80 Years' War, thousands of Calvinists sought refuge in England. Fleeing religious persecution under Spanish rule, they settled in over 20 towns, primarily in the eastern part of the country. Among these towns was King's Lynn, a historic port with long-standing trade links to the Low Countries. Lynn became one of 4 locations in Norfolk where exile communities formed, alongside Norwich, Thetford, and Great Yarmouth. Each of these communities established its own Calvinist church, allowing them to practice their faith freely while contributing to the local economy. A haven for the persecuted. King's Lynn had a deep-rooted connection with the Low Countries, as merchants from the region had frequented the port for centuries. However, the arrival of exiles in the 1560s marked a new chapter in this relationship. In 1567, the Borough Council of Lynn formally invited these refugees to settle and work in the town. By the end of that year, the community was well established, with a Calvinist minister arriving to lead worship and guide the religious life of the exiles. Drawing on official records from 1568 and 1571, we can trace the identities and movements of these refugees, where they came from, the roles they assumed, and the networks they formed. Lynn's leaders had been inspired by the example of nearby Norwich, which had already welcomed exiles to help rejuvenate its economy. However, Lynn's exile community has often been overlooked in historical accounts, with more focus given to Norwich. This documentary seeks to correct that omission by shedding light on the vital role these refugees played in shaping King's Lynn and its place in the broader history of the Dutch Revolt. The fight for religious freedom was a defining struggle of the era, shaping the lives and destinies of countless individuals. It was a time when people risked everything for the right to worship as they believed. The arrival of Calvinist exiles in Lynn was part of a broader movement of Dutch Protestants escaping Spanish oppression. Queen Elizabeth's government sought to keep track of these refugee communities, concerned both with their religious beliefs and their impact on local society. A census conducted in 1568 under the Bishop of Norwich, John Parkhurst, recorded details of the Lynn exile community, documenting their numbers and affiliations. A subsequent survey in 1571, ordered by the English crown, focused more on their occupations and residency status rather than their religious leanings. Despite this scrutiny, the exile community thrived. Although no direct records from the Lynn Exile Church's consistory have been found, letters from other exile churches and official borough records provide insights into their daily lives. These documents reveal that the local authorities in Lynn played an active role in integrating the exiles into the town's economic and social fabric. The community not only found religious freedom, but also contributed to Lynn's struggling economy, particularly in the textile industry. From exile to leadership, the journey was both arduous and transformative. Many who fled persecution found themselves in positions of influence and guidance within their new communities. Among the leading figures in the Lynn Exile Church was Gerardus Gallus, a former monk from Utrecht who had become a staunch Calvinist preacher. Before arriving in England, Gallus had been involved in the early waves of the Beeldenstorm, the iconoclastic riots of 1566, in which Protestant mobs destroyed Catholic imagery in churches across the Low Countries. His arrival in Lynn in October 1567 signaled the establishment of a structured Calvinist congregation in the town. Gallus was not alone. The church also had elders and deacons who helped oversee the religious and communal life of the exiles. Some, like Deacon Daniel Wanty, later returned to the Low Countries, where they played key roles in building the Reformed Church. This pattern, where exiles gained experience in England before returning home to shape the Protestant movement, was a recurring theme in the Dutch Revolt. The economic impact and tensions with Norwich during this period were quite, well, significant. The influx of skilled workers altered the local economy, leading to both opportunities and conflicts. As these new settlers established themselves, they brought with them not only their trades, but also their customs and traditions, which sometimes clashed with those of the local population. King Lynn's economic struggles in the mid-16th century were significant. The decline in demand for its traditional textile products, coupled with the dissolution of monasteries, had left the town in need of revitalization. The arrival of skilled weavers and artisans from the Low Countries offered a potential solution. The town's leaders recognized this and actively encouraged the settlement of exile workers. However, Lynn's growing textile industry created friction with nearby Norwich, which already had a well-established exile community. Norwich leaders sought to maintain their dominance in the regional textile trade, even attempting to regulate the production of Lynn's fabrics. In response, Lynn's borough council took steps to attract more skilled workers, even offering financial incentives to lure weavers from Norwich. This economic rivalry underscored the importance of the exiles' contributions, as both towns sought to harness their skills for local prosperity. The fate of the community was, well, rather complex. Over time, many members of the exile community either returned to their homelands or integrated into English society. Their legacy, however, continued to influence the local culture and economy for years to come. Despite its initial success, the Lynn Exile Church gradually faded from historical records. By 1572, Gallus had returned to the Low Countries, joining the newly emerging Reform movement in Delft and later working in Den Briel. Other members of the community either followed him back or integrated into English society. However, evidence suggests that Dutch-speaking worship may have continued in Lynn for a few more years, possibly until 1576. The borough records indicate that some exiles remained in Lynn even after the church's decline. Baptism and burial records from St. Margaret's Church suggest that Dutch-speaking families continued to live in the town into the late 1570s. Nonetheless, without a strong religious institution to bind them together, the community gradually dispersed. For centuries, the story of the Dutch exiles in King's Lynn was largely forgotten. Unlike the well-documented refugee communities in Norwich and London, Lynn's exiles received little attention from historians. Even local histories of the town made only passing references to their presence. The few scholarly works that did acknowledge them often relied on flawed transcriptions of historical records. Today, thanks to careful archival research, their story is being pieced back together. The records reveal a narrative of resilience, adaptation, and economic contribution. The exiles of Lynn were not just passive refugees. They were active participants in the broader struggles of their time. They helped to shape the town's economy, played a role in the early days of the Dutch Revolt, and contributed to the development of the Reformed Church in the Netherlands. Their journey from persecution to sanctuary and ultimately to influence is a testament to the enduring power of faith and the indelible mark that refugees can leave on their adopted homes. This is the story of King's Lynn's Forgotten Exiles, an overlooked but essential chapter in the intertwined histories of England and the Netherlands.